The Eastern State Penitentiary is a must-stop attraction when visiting Philadelphia, and one that I highly recommend adding to your itinerary. This is the United States' most historic prison and claims to be the world's first true penitentiary, a building designed to inspire penitence, or true regret, in the hearts of criminals. Jails prior were not designed for punishment, but were simply housing areas where prisoners were housed together regardless of crime, age, and sex. The punishments of the 1700s included things like floggings, public whippings and executions, and fines, not long-term imprisonment. Hello, and welcome to Sarah's Scuba and Travel channel. The information presented in this video was gathered during my visit to Eastern State Penitentiary, as well as my own knowledge on the history of psychological treatment. Let's take a look at what awaits you at this stop. I recommend purchasing your tickets online before you arrive. The ticket price includes an audio tour, which I highly recommend partaking in. Don't forget to pick up a map when you arrive as well. The map contains information on the stops for the audio tour, as well as additional exhibits and extra audio files. The main audio tour explains the history of the facility, as well as highlighting different cell blocks and areas. The main audio tour lasts approximately 40 minutes, and you can move through the facility at your own pace. There are additional audio presentations available as well. It is recommended to work through the main audio tour first and then enjoy the additional highlights if time permits. The audio tour is very well done and contains original first-person accounts of what it was like to be a prisoner or a guard at the facility. One of the first things you might notice when visiting is how high the walls are. The walls are 30 feet tall and an additional 10 feet below ground level to make it harder to escape. Instead of a prison, it appears to be more like a medieval fortress on 10 acres of land. The architect, John Haviland, said that the building should strike fear into the hearts of those who thought of committing a crime. It also sat on a hilltop and towered over the city of Philadelphia below as a constant reminder to those who may commit crimes. Construction on the facility was completed in 1836. Eastern State Penitentiary used to be the most expensive prison in the world. As you can see today, it is a walled compound with crumbling cell blocks and empty guard towers. The first cell block you enter is Cell Block 1, which opened in 1829. Benjamin Rush, the founder of American psychiatry, was one of the founders of Eastern State Penitentiary and was a founder of the Philadelphia Society for Alleviating the Miseries of Public Prisons, which was the world's first organization devoted to prison reform. I don't talk about this in my videos, but I have a master's degree in clinical psychology and I teach at a state college. To be honest, I'm skeptical of Rush's approach and what it was really like for these prisoners. The facility was touted as being a place of solitude for rehabilitation to occur. Prisoners were housed in solitary confinement to reflect on their crimes and punishment. Their cells were roughly 8 feet by 12 feet. They had a bed, workbench, and a cast iron toilet that was flushed once a day. Prisoners would sleep, work, and eat in their cells. They made shoes and chairs, dyed and wove wool and fabrics, and more. The floors were wooden, the cells had high arches with a skylight to resemble a church. The back of each cell had a small door which opened into a walled exercise yard with open sky. Prisoners were given 2 30-minute breaks a day to enter their personal exercise yard. The doors in the main corridor were not present at this time. They were added later in the 1950s. There was originally just a food hole where meals could be passed to the inmates. The only way in and out of the cells was through the exercise yard. There was 20 inches of masonry between the cells, preventing prisoners from being able to communicate with one another. The penitentiary encouraged and was designed for silence. Guards would wear wool socks over their shoes to muffle their footprints. However, prisoners still managed to find ways to communicate with one another through small holes. This demonstrates the psychological need to have connections with other humans, as we are social creatures. Having relationships with others is an evolutionary need to increase our chances for survival and reproduction. Social isolation is a threat to our physical and psychological well-being. Punishments for this behavior included being placed in a dark cell with only bread and water, or the use of a straitjacket and gag. I want to remind my viewers, despite what Hollywood portrays, the field of psychology no longer uses straitjackets and gags in the US. Today we know that solitary confinement may induce or increase the severity of mental health symptoms, especially in individuals with psychological disorders. In many states, it is illegal to put individuals with mental health conditions in solitary confinement. Many of the prisoners at Eastern State Penitentiary may have had forms of mental illness, and the design of this facility may have exacerbated their symptoms. In addition, Rush believed that alcoholism was the cause for most crimes, even though he enjoyed the use as well. If that was true, substance use disorders and co-occurring mental health symptoms would have definitely been present for many of these inmates. The development of Eastern State and the time of Rush's clinical work was during the Enlightenment period, where there was a shift in thinking that mental illness was due to disease and not possession by demons. The idea of removing restraints and treating the mentally ill with kindness and respect spread from Europe to the U.S. Benjamin Rush helped to spread the ideas in the U.S., however, he still had some very backwards forms of thinking and treatment compared to what we know today. Rush recommended that bodily pain, labor, watchfulness, solitude, and silence serve as the proper remedy or remedies for particular vices. He believed that treatment for mental illness required reminding individuals of their impending death. Benjamin Rush encouraged the use of large metal cells and doors at the facility because he felt that the noise of the metal slamming was a soul-crushing reminder to everyone present where they were. Other forms of treatment Benjamin Rush employed were bloodletting, purging, gyrators, and the tranquilizer chair. The tranquilizer chair was a form of restraint, and Rush promoted it as a humane alternative to the straitjacket at the time. Today, we know that mechanical restraints cause more harm than good to individuals experiencing active mental health symptoms. During this time, prison sentences lasted only about 2 years, and few were longer than 8, even for crimes like murder. There was no such thing as a life sentence. People who were condemned to die were sent elsewhere. To elaborate on the solitude they experienced, anytime prisoners were outside of their cells, they would have to wear a white hood, so they would not be able to learn the layout of the prison, and so no other prisoners would be able to recognize them once they were released back into the world. Prisoners could go as long as 8 years or more, never seeing another prisoner or human being for that matter. Prisoners were only allowed to talk to the chaplains and guards. The only book available was the Bible. They did not receive letters from home, newspapers, or visitors. In 1842, after a visit to the facility, Charles Dickens stated that he believed the mental torture that was occurring in this facility was worse than any bodily torture one may experience. Whether or not their approach to reform was successful was highly debated, as they did not keep records on the inmates. There was no photography or fingerprinting at the time, so any chance of tracking recidivism rates was not possible. From cell block 1, you will enter the center. The idea was for one guard to be able to easily see down all of the corridors. Cell block 2 housed female prisoners, and cell block 3 became the hospital cell block. Cell blocks 4, 5, 6, and 7 were designed to be 2-story cell blocks so the state could house more prisoners. From here, the audio tour will take you into cell block 7, where you can walk up to the catwalk and view the gallery. This building was studied by officials from around the world, mimicking other prisons after Eastern State's design, called the Pennsylvania system. In 1913, the isolation ended and prisoners were able to talk and interact with each other. The last cell block in the audio tour takes you through cell block 4, where you can listen to original recordings of inmates and guards talking about their time in the prison, including recreational activities, cell block furnishings, and race relations, including segregation and integration. Some of these individuals in the recordings are in other prisons in Pennsylvania today. From here, you will be directed to exit the cell block to the recreation field. Inmates used to play football and baseball here. Today, there is an installation depicting the current trends in incarceration in the U.S. You can see the spike in incarcerations from the 1970s, when Eastern State was finally closed due to poor conditions. Just to give you an idea of how vast incarceration is in the U.S., according to the National Research Council, in 2012, nearly 1 out of every 100 American adults was in prison or jail. This side of the installation presents how the U.S. compares to other countries around the world, with the number of citizens incarcerated per 100,000 citizens. You can see that the U.S. outranks all other countries in the world, very far from Russia's original view. Finally, the audio tour will direct you to enter Prisons Today, Questions in the Age of Mass Incarceration exhibit, which is located on the outside of Cell Block 4. This exhibit explores trends in the U.S. corrections and rhetorically asks the question as to whether or not the U.S. system is meeting their objectives and the biases in the system. Once you are done with the exhibit, you can explore the prison on your own. I recommend heading back to the center where you can visit Al Capone's cell. There is controversy over which cell actually belonged to Al Capone, the one that is furnished or the one next to it. The furnished cell has been restored to resemble what it may have looked like during his 8-month stay at Eastern State Penitentiary. It appears to be more luxurious than what other prisoners experienced during the same time period. There are additional exhibits you can visit. Refer to the map you picked up at the entrance. It contains information about audio tracks for artist installations and exploring more exhibits. Once you are done, make your way to the exit. You will walk through the area where the warden's office and officer's mess area were located, and finally back out into the world without a towering wall around you. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and don't forget to hit that like button. If you would like to support future productions, you can buy me a snack below or show your support with the Super Thanks link. Don't forget to join the Facebook group and follow me on Instagram for more content.